friends, this is Crystal from Homemaking on the Homestead, and today I am going to share with you how I menu plan. I've been asked by people, how do I menu plan? I've had that question several times. The other question I've had, or other comment I've had people say to me is, they look at my grocery hauls and they say, well, what do you even eat? Because, none of my grocery hauls that you look at, well, I won't say none, but a lot of my grocery hauls that you see, and of course I'm referring to my blog more than the YouTube channel for right now, but you couldn't really necessarily tell what I'm serving for dinner. And so I just wanted to share with you today how I menu plan. Years ago, when I was a new housewife, a homemaker, whatever, and I had no clue. My mother really didn't teach me how to cook or how to menu plan or how to manage anything. And so I would, get up in the morning and flip through a cookbook and figure out, okay, I'm going to make this for dinner. And then I would write down everything I would need. We lived about 2 blocks from a grocery store, so I would go to the grocery store. I would get exactly what I needed for that meal, and I would come home and I would cook that meal. And honestly, it ended up being like an all-day experience. Over time, as I had more children and things grew, of course, it just wasn't possible for me to do that anymore, and I had to get a little bit more quick and savvy about how I shopped and how I planned. I eventually got to the point where I could, write out a menu for a week, and I would oftentimes open up the sale flyer and I would look at that and see, they have hamburger on sale, they have chicken on sale, tuna's at a good price this week. And so from that, I would write down, okay, we're going to have spaghetti, we're going to have baked chicken, we're going to have tuna casserole, and write down all the things I needed and then make a trip to the store. And I could do that about once a week or so. Eventually, especially when we moved out to the country, and I am now 45 minutes to an hour away from the grocery stores, it takes, more of an effort. You don't just run to the store for something. And we moved out here about 23 years ago, I think. And so I began at that point to do more bulk foods, cook from scratch, and to really upgrade my pantry so that I had what I needed when I needed it. And I did that for years, and that is basically still how I do it, although my pantry today is nowhere near what it was back then. I used to can, so my candy shelves were full. I would buy food in 25-pound bags, 50-pound bags. I would store it in Gamma Seal buckets, and I always had, and I cooked everything from scratch, so I always had what I needed. As long as my pantry stayed stocked, I had everything I needed to cook pretty much whatever I needed. I also began to realize that I didn't really cook with a huge amount of variety. So as long as I always had basic things on hand, I could cook anything I wanted. And then I took that even one step farther, and I made myself let me show you, a master grocery list. This one was from Costco, and this one I found in my computer. And every time I would go grocery shopping, I would print this out. I would look through my supplies, and I would circle what I needed, and then I would take that to the grocery store. And in that way, again, I could simply see, okay, we, have a lot of potatoes, so this week we're going to have a lot of potato-based meals, or rice, or beans, or whatever it was, and that is how I plan my menus. So nowadays, since it's just my husband and I at home, I don't cook as much from scratch as I used to. I buy a little bit more of the convenience foods, but not a lot. I still prefer doing things as simply as possible. And my pantry is much smaller than it ever used to be. And today, my pantry has a lot of items. I just put some out here, just, you all know what pantry items look like, but I just thought I'd show you some of mine. And so I tend to use containers to hold things like beans. I use canning jars. This one has split peas in it. It's a 2-quart jar. This one has some oats in it. I have rice. This one has brown rice. I reuse containers. This is the pub mix that my husband buys. I save some of those I save some of those containers, and I reuse them again. And then, of course, I have a few things that are canned, bottled, jarred, and then freezer items. So basically, when I go grocery shopping, or I menu plan, I should say, when I menu plan, I first assess what I have on hand. Every few months, I go through my freezer and write down mostly meat, because at this point, a lot of our meals are meat based. So, I did that recently, and this is what I have, in my freezer currently. And from that, I try to utilize the older things first. So if I see I have a pot roast in there that needs to be used, or I have some chicken that's been in there for a little while, so I really need to get that used so I can continue to rotate. From that, I plan the meal. So if I have the pot roast, I will write that down, and I will just double check to make sure do I have the potatoes? Do I have the carrots? Maybe I realize I need some potatoes, so I will write that down on my grocery list. So for that meal, which could literally feed us 2 or 3 days, maybe, all I have on the list is potatoes, because that's all I need. That's why often it's really hard to tell from my hauls exactly what I have planned to cook. I usually try to think ahead of time 2 or 3 meals. I've tried different ways of doing this. For years, I had these cute little menu plans that I created, and I would write down, they have a place for breakfast, lunch, dinner. I use these a lot when my kids were home. Then I moved to calendars. So, I just go online, find a printable calendar, and I would do that. Eventually, with my website, The Family Homestead, I started creating my own menu planning calendars, and I would just go through the month, and I would write down, what I wanted, so I knew what I had, what I had going on, what the meal was coming up. And then every week I would look at that and then say, okay, I need to make sure, we're getting low on rice, and I need that this week. I'm making lasagna, so I need to make sure I get cottage cheese. And those type of things would go on my list. So nowadays, basically, grocery shopping for me is basically restocking fresh food, restocking my pantry of anything that I might have used. So if I used a couple cans of diced tomatoes last week, I will write diced tomatoes down on my list, and I will pick up some to restock what I have. If I've used, frozen foods, for instance, if I used a bag of peas and carrots in a chicken pot pie, well, then I will make sure that I replace that. And that becomes how my grocery hauls look. These are just simply items that I'm replacing in my pantry. And I also shop for sales. So if something is an item that I know that I have in my pantry, and maybe I have plenty, but I see it on sale one week, then I might say, okay, let me grab 4 or 5 of those, or half a dozen, or something like, depending on how good the deal is. And meat. Every week I kind of search and scan the meat department in both Costco and Winco to see if there's any meat in there that is a good deal that I know that I would use. So for me, menu planning comes down to just simply figuring out, I go over my list of meats, I look and see what meat I want to use up first, and I create the meal from that. And then I double check to make sure I have what I need for a side dish. And then I always serve a salad, because we like our fresh vegetables and we like our salads. And so I always serve a salad. So it's very simple meal planning. Now I don't usually use a calendar anymore, because what I found is I might make lasagna, and I think, oh, okay, that's going to last us 2 nights. And by the 3rd night, I still have some. And so now my whole calendar is messed up. So I don't even bother with that anymore. I have a pretty simplistic homemaking type notebook that I created. It's really just, it's 5 different categories, that are divided. And I have meal planning as one of those categories. So I kind of just, created this myself. And what I basically do is, in the section of meal planning, I write down my freezer items, my pantry items, and then I have places where I check for what recipes, I want to try, or ideas. And after I've made those, I scratch them off. So when I get ready to think about, well, what are we going to do this week? I look at my I look at my freezer list. What meat do I need to use up? I look at my menu ideas that I've jotted down throughout the week, and that's how I create my menus. And from there, I write down any necessary items that I might need, I might run out of, or I might not have, to make sure that when I go to make that meal, it's there. So it's a pretty simple system. And as long as I cook with just pretty much basic simple foods, then it really minimizes how much I need to purchase and what I need to keep on hand. So there you go. I hope that makes sense to everybody, and now you get a kind of an idea of how I menu plan. So if you found this helpful, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe, or all those good things, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.